multifamily development where it's what this open space regulation was written for, then you obviously got multiple entities that are interested in the open space, which is why it should be specified and dictated and used or dictated by homeowners association. But here the Roberts are the homeowners association. This is going to be their yard. And I don't know if I left anything out, but Roberts are here, would like to speak. Landscape architect is here. Ruth has some overheads that we'd like to put up to show what he's planning to put there. And then I'll let you talk again, or we'll answer questions or whatever he wants to do. Ruth, you got the one that shows the house first.
And switching.
Well, she's doing that. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When I was looking at some of the trees, one edge of right at the top of that slope, it looked like the roots. Just wondering, like the slope.
Well, that was the other thing, and Ms. Patterson may speak to that. I think this plan calls for taking down 16 trees. And out of those 16 trees, I believe at least half of them are going to die anyway. It's not a healthy stand of trees, this thing. The ones that are near the edge of this, where this grading I described earlier is, like you said, the root systems have been disturbed and they're not going to live anyway. I think what she has there is the house they're planning to put there. And the trees that, she can speak to this also, Ms. Patterson can. I think he's planning on planting like 49 trees to replace the 16 trees that are going to be removed. Yeah, initially, correct.
Those 49, will you please tell us who you were?
My name is Shirley Madison. I'm the designer for the Roberts on this property. We aired on address. My address is 436 Sugarwood Drive here in Farragut. The Roberts are existing clients of mine. They are existing homeowners and residents of Farragut. And this site that they've chosen, as you can see, we have situated it there to take advantage of both views and the topography that we're dealt with. The tree loss, I think it might be viewed initially as maybe a step back, 1 or 2 steps back, but I think you can see, well, if we could go back to the graphic prior, well, look at this. This is showing you the concept rendering of what we expect this property to look like within a few years of growth. Some of the trees in the rear are the existing trees that are left. There are a total of 51 trees. Ruth, that one that you were going to put up shows the trees in that cluster that have diameters over 10 inches. Because in the tree preservation plan, we really start to discuss trees that exceed 10 inches and above. Of those trees, as Richard said, we're about a half acre. We're 23,400 square feet of loss, if you look at it as a canopy, a square foot of canopy loss. And that's 51 total trees on there now. We're going to take 16 down in order to do this. And as Richard said, about half of those, the root systems from prior work on the site, there's actually a couple that have just fallen. And a couple of those that show now are actually down. But we're proposing to err on what I think is a very generous side of tree preservation plan and put 49 hardwood trees, canopy trees, back on the property. Is there any question in regards to the numbers as far as 49?
I have a question. What's the landscaping budget for this project?
We actually haven't settled with the landscape budget. We're still in such a preliminary, we don't have a landscape plan, so it would be very difficult to come up with a landscape budget. We don't have the final numbers on the house. That's to come.
Do you have an estimated value of this house?
Actually, Mr. Roberts can speak to that. He has put out his drawings for estimates from some of the local contractors, and in my experience, a house like this, a luxury home, we would probably be looking at a total construction budget. We would take 3 to 5% of that as a landscape budget. So I'll let you hear from Mr. Roberts in regards to the budget for the residents.
I don't think the budget for the residents is relevant to two-hour discussion here, but Mr. Roberts
Well,
has something he wants
Well,
to say.
I'm gonna have to get that number from him, and then we'll just take a 3 to 5%, but I don't wanna overspeak, you know, that's,
Absolutely. I'm sorry, sir, did you have a question?
I really don't think that's really, what the chairman was saying is that's, you know, putting you on the spot to give a number and a range, anything like that. It's really not germane, is it?
Well, I definitely don't want to give you information you don't need. I mean, this is a public affair, but we would like to maintain some privacy. My name is Dr. John Roberts. I live in Farragut at 12704 Shady Ridge Lane in Saddle Ridge Subdivision. My wife and I decided to purchase this property, and before purchasing this property, I did have a meeting with Ms. Hawk, and I can't remember the town engineer, but had a preliminary meeting with them because honestly I've heard how difficult it might be to build anything in Farragut. And at that meeting, we talked about several things, and I asked her to email me what we talked about, and the only thing mentioned at that time was that because it was zoned OSMR, there was the 35% requirement for open space. Well, when I think of open space, I think of trees, I think of grass, I think of anything that looks natural on a piece of property. So, former math teacher, it was real easy to do the math, and you know, meeting that 35%, no big deal. And then we had a subsequent meeting where some more information was brought forth, and so I'd like to comment about what was brought to our attention. I would point out that the property is actually zoned R1 and OSMR, which, you know, I've looked at the ordinances, everything you've got for properties, and it seems to me, and maybe it's just unclear, maybe I just don't understand what's been put in writing, that the property can be either, and that it may be based on the proposed development to be put on the property. And as a proposed detached single-family dwelling, it would seem to me that we would be looking more at the regulations for R1 zoning. Okay? With that said, if not, if for whatever reason I'm wrong, or we're going to ignore those facts, and we're going to stay with OSMR, that Ms. Hawk, if you could please go back to the, I think it was the second picture that showed the previous plat and what was designated open space. Not that one. It was the second one. Yes, it was the one after that. Okay. Now, for whatever reason, the only highlighted portion of that is the treat area. But if you actually look closer at that plat, the area that is between the road and what is now the retaining wall, that's actually declared open space. The area to the left of the road, that's on the left, is actually declared open space. Those three spaces comprise the 5.02 acres that was considered open space for that property. It was not just the trees. And that ended up being about 42%, which exceeds 35%. So, you know, plan approved. Now, for whatever reason, we're proposing a new development, and now we only want to consider the trees. We don't want to consider anything else about this property. And again, previously, those were included as part of the open space requirements. And there's actually, I couldn't find a definition in the ordinances about what open space is. I could just find a description. And all I really found was that, you know, it's, Ms. Hawk only listed trees. She said trees and blah, 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 blah. Well, there's some other things in the blah, 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 blah that, you know, maybe we should look at. It's not just the trees. We had a second meeting, and I believe you have the notes of this meeting. This would be item number 14 on that. Ms. Hawk, do they have that? Do they have those notes?
Yes, I do.
Okay, number 14. Open spaces retain the natural features of the site. In this case, the treat area is that. Again, that's not the case. Previously, that was not the case. That should not be the case now. With the trees, as stated by Ms. Patterson, landscape architect, fully qualified to make this determination, and pointed out by you, sir, some of the trees that we propose to take are dying anyway. They are hazardous by definition in your ordinances. And any tree we take, we love trees. We don't want to take the trees. But we also don't want our house to sit on top of the retaining wall. We don't want to walk out the front door and feel like we're going to step off the retaining wall in Campbell Station. And by the same token, if you're driving down Campbell Station and you look at that property and you look at that home, it should not appear as if that home is sitting on top of the retaining wall. That would look unnatural. Okay, so all we're trying to do is build our dream home. We already live in Farragut. We want to stay in Farragut. Found this property kind of by accident. The size is perfect for us. The location is tremendous. All we're trying to do is build a dream home. Any tree we take down, we're going to replace and then some. And not because you tell us we have to, because we want to. We want the property to look natural. That would include trees. We also want natural screening from Campbell Station, from the high school. So trees are going to get put back. And they'll be better. They'll be healthier. And we're not going anywhere. Okay? We've lived in Knoxville/Farragut now for closing in on 8 years. My wife is a physician. She has a thriving practice. We're not going anywhere. We're going to die in this home if we get to build it. Okay? And you have a safeguard against future developments. If we die, and whoever we will this to, if we get to build this, wants to change it into a strip mall, they got to get through you. They can't just do it. And so I'm not sure why we are so focused on what may happen in the future. Okay? Because you do have a control in place for that. But we should not be held. We do not feel like we should be held to the requirements that honestly were meant for, I can't call it a commercial situation, but the attached single-family stuff, the apartments, the condominiums, those kinds of things. Okay, and I don't know how anybody could say that if you look at the property now, which honestly is an eyesore. I mean, how can you not drive past that property and look up there and know that somebody tried to develop that and walked away from it? That property looks abandoned because you have a center cut of trees and nothing around it. If she puts the home back up there, that's what it will look like when we're done. And I think if you asked anybody this versus this, I would like to think most people are going to exercise some logic and do this. So, final thought, I do hope you exercise some logic. I hope you believe in being fair and consistent, because the other thing I would mention real quickly is, we have other developments in Farragut where we stripped every tree. Now, we're not Costco, okay? We're going to leave as many trees as we can that are already on property, and then we're going to add a bunch more. And it will look natural, because, it's a large home. It's projected to be about 14,000 square feet with a driveway that circles in front of it. So that limits where we can place the home. And again, not feel like we're standing on top of that retaining wall. All we're trying to do.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
I agree with everything you've said and everything that Mr. LeMay said. I think what's more important to us is the end result, not what we start with. And I tell you frankly, I regret having planted some of the trees at my yard, because now I have to deal with the leaves on them. So good luck. But I'm in favor of granting your request. And we're glad you're interested in staying in Farragut. We want that too.
My name is Tom Rossio, 425 Clover Fork Drive. Sitting in the audience, of course, we don't have what's in front of you in your packet, but what's not clear to me is if part of the open space is being removed, where is the new open space?